We're back with the fire truck model build. Don't go away. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fat Guy Productions. I am Paul, coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. And yep, it's time to get back to work on the AMT American LaFrance ladder truck model build. We have a lot to do, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just get to work. Okay, so we're back at it, and let me tell you in advance, we're gonna start running into a lot of problems. I don't know what it is. I think I just have my head up my butt. Okay, honestly, I can say that. I can admit that because I do a lot of stupid stuff with this build, and we've already talked about. And I've even been questioned by one of you guys on one of the videos. Why didn't I put the little inserts in the fenders and do it that way? Well, yeah, I should have. I'm an idiot. Okay, I don't know, but trust me. That's going to be the least of the things I'm going to screw up here, okay? This thing is going to fight me every step of the way, but I will say this. It's coming out really, really good, okay? With that said, let's go ahead and get to work. Now, what I want to do today is right now I want to get as much of the body ready for paint. Now, you notice I've got a lot of stuff primed, and now I'm just trimming it all off. I'll clean it up. And like these big long side panels for the rear body, I want to build them as best I can. So what I'm going to use is the main deck that these would glue into. And I'm going to use it sort of like a jig to try and help hold everything in the right alignment and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything cleaned up. I've got some 1, 2, 3 blocks here because, of course, like the entire kit, the main deck is warped. And so I've got some 1, 2, 3 blocks holding it down and flat. And then I'm going to glue these side panels into their little ends, let that all dry so that I can seal any seams and stuff before I paint these, along with all the zillions of other parts. But that's my main goal here, is to just get these pieces assembled, but not glued to the main deck yet, okay? I'm just using it as a grid to hold everything. Then we can go ahead and we'll eventually get to the paint booth. You'll notice I brought in some more 1, 2, 3 blocks, and you notice I'm doing a lot of work here. That's because, frankly, there's like I said, you know, you've got the ends of the sprues that are going to be in the way, and everything is warped already. You don't need little bits of sprue pushing things further out of whack. So I'm going to do a really good job of cleaning everything up. I have to scrape away primer where I'm going to glue these parts together and do a little dry fitting. And yeah, use more 1, 2, 3 blocks to kind of hold everything in place as I glue. Now, I've told you, you know, I use a lot of different kinds of glues and adhesives and stuff, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. And I've already used this in this build, but I'm going to use the Tamiya cement, which is more like a tester's tube glue, but you brush it on. And the reason I'm using that here is because I have to fidget with things and get things lined up and stuff. And this glue will give me a little bit more open time to work with those things, make sure everything is lined up before it starts to set up. So, you know, hey, here's my complement of glues that I've used so far. I have used Tamiya cement. I've used Tamiya extra thin. I've used Tamiya extra thin quick setting. I've used my gel control CA glue, and I've used I forget the other brand, but a different CA. It's a thick not gel. It's thick, so it'll flow, but I've used a lot of glue so far, Hey, that's one of the things that can help you have success in your model building is having all the different kinds of adhesives, making friends with them, understanding what they can and can't do, and it'll help you get along and have a better build. So the very farthest back compartments of the rear body, and I want you to pay special close attention to this, okay? You have to kind of put them in the right place. Okay, so all of the compartments on the left side face one way, on the right side they face the other way. And so you've got to make sure that you have your compartments facing the right direction for the right side of the body. Now, you'll see, I'm cognizant of that. I'm very well aware of this. So I'm working it out in my head to make sure that I have the right compartments for the right sides. And what I realized is at this point, all I got to do is make sure I have the right sides up. And it doesn't really matter at that point because I can just spin it around if I have it pointing the wrong direction. But still, I better safe than sorry. So, here I am. I'm just looking at one side panel and matching up the rear compartments to make sure I have everything aligned before I get too deep into this because I would hate to screw this up. But again, remember this moment. Okay, so the cab is looking pretty good. I made the number plate for the front of the cab, and unlike Engine 14, I didn't have to make the little mounting pedestals for the roof. I bought some great redheads from my friend Dave Parsley, and he threw in some mounting pedestals for me and stuff, so I don't have to make those. I just have to glue them on. So I'm getting the number plate affixed to the cab and the mounting pedestals for the warning lights, and yeah, the cab is looking really good. I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. So why am I using the Gel Control CA, you might ask? Well, that's a good question. Because first of all, I'm working with resin. Okay, the cab itself is resin. It has primer on it, and I'm pretty positive that these pedestals are resin as well. So I want to make sure they adhere through all of that, and the CA is going to be my best bet. I love the gel control because I really can put it right where I want it. I don't have to worry about it running or anything like that. So a little bit of the gel control super glue, get everything lined up, stick it down, and we're good to go. Okay, while the sides continue to dry, I can start work on all the little parts, okay? There's so many little parts and pieces of this build that are going to have to be body colored. So they all got to be painted. Now, I primed them all on the tree, but if I paint them on the tree, then I'm going to have little spots and I'm going to have to touch up all over the place, and I don't want to do that. So what I do is I cut them all off, I clean them all up, and I mount them somehow, either using little alligator clips. Sometimes you can glue on a piece of sprue from the backside to hold it. There's a lot of different ways that you can hold your stuff while you paint, but that's what I'm doing here. I'm getting everything ready to be held and taken over to the paint booth. So I'm just figuring out the best way to paint each piece, getting everything set, and then we're almost, believe it or not, we're almost ready to put some paint on this thing. Okay, so we are at the paint booth, and I'm going to be using Tamiya Lemon Yellow. Now, that might be the dead-on yellow color for our modern-day engines with the Clark County Fire Department, but in the older days, it was a little dingier, a little oranger. So I'm going to add to this large jar of lemon yellow Tamiya paint, I'm going to add 4 drops of red, just a hair, to mix it in there and kind of dull it down a little bit, make it not so bright. After I get the paint to where I like it, and I'm happy with the color, then I'll go ahead and I'll initially thin it down using leveling thinner, so that when I paint this down, it's going to level out and get a really great finish. Then I'll take it the rest of the way for airbrushing using the Tamiya X20 thinner, so that I can get everything airbrushed on. And look, on something like this, I'll tell you in advance, I use up every drop of this paint. And I managed to get everything painted, but there wasn't any left, and I did need a little more. So it was a good thing that I paid attention to how many drops of red I used to this yellow, because I was able to recreate it for some touch-ups and stuff that I had to do later on. Okay, so here's my goal. Well, first I'm going to go ahead and put on a tack coat and then some medium coats to build it up, especially because I'm using the gray primer. And that was a conscious choice, was to use the gray primer, because, again, I'm trying to bring that yellow down a little bit. If I used white primer under here, this yellow would be so bright, it wouldn't be realistic to these older vehicles. So, but it also means that I need a lot more intermediate coats, because I really have to build that yellow up. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of splotchy. So I need to make sure I'm methodical. I follow a pattern around the cab, and, miscoat to build up that tacky layer, medium coats to build up the color and even everything out, and then wet coats to really make everything smooth and shiny. And that is critical here. I don't want to have to clear coat this before decals. And if the paint job isn't smooth and glossy, I'm going to have to do that. So it's really imperative that I put this paint down nicely, so that the decals will go down without silvering. So, I'm going to take my time and get all this painted, and then I got to paint all those little bits and parts. It's going to be a lot of fun. Not. Okay, so the cab is starting to get consistently yellow throughout, and I'm about ready to start putting on those wet coats. And I'm really going to lay the paint on pretty well. And you've heard me talk about it in the diecast videos. To get the paint on properly, so that it lays down, is glossy and smooth and shiny, you need to be able to see the paint landing on the body. Okay, that means lighting. You have to have great lighting. And in the painting, you noticed I was picking the cab up and moving it around and stuff. That's so I can see it in the lighting and see that paint laying down. Because what I'm shooting for is I'm shooting for as wet and as glossy as I can get it without it running. It's this fine line between super, super wet and heavy and running. And I need to find that sweet spot right in the middle. And, I've done this for a while, so I actually am pretty good at that. But if you're working on stuff, that's what you're shooting for. You're shooting for being able to go really, really heavy and wet, but not so heavy and wet that you get runs and sags and drips. All right, so the cab is looking good. I put it off to the side, and now I'm going to tackle all those millions of body parts. And look, it's important when you're painting pieces. Paint from every direction. Paint from the front, then from the left, then from the back, then from the right, then straight above, then from underneath. And I'll tell you something else about this model kit. Paint the undersides where it's going to be at the bottom of the truck. Otherwise, what's going to happen, you're going to build this up and you're going to look at it from underneath and you're going to see white plastic and silver plastic and yellow plastic and all these different colors, and it will look like garbage. All right? So make sure that you're painting all the white surfaces. Don't leave anything unpainted. Okay? If it's something that shows underneath the bottom of the truck or you don't think it's going to show at all, who cares? Go ahead and paint it. You can, some of those areas you can just brush paint with flat black paint if you want to. That's fine. Just, be thorough. Make sure that the primary color is laid down completely and from every direction, and make sure that you paint all the back sides of the parts and stuff so that if something shows in the finished product, it won't stand out like a turd in a punch bowl. Okay, so I created all my decals in Adobe Illustrator. I scaled everything to size, and what I've taken to doing all the way around, and I've told you about this. The only downside to using the Ghost White toner and the laser printer is registration. It's really hard to register white underneath the colored layers, so I just don't. I layer the decals. So I print out a plain white decal, then I print out a color one and put it over the top of it. And in this case, you'll see it works out great, especially because I need a white border. Okay, so right now I'm cutting out all the little pieces of decals that I printed. I've got the numbers, the door logos, I got the vehicle ID number, I got the compartment door numbers, all of those things. I'm getting everything cut out, and then we can go ahead and start putting these water slide decals on the cab the first pass, the white layer pass. Okay, so I've got a white layer decal in the water. I always like to put a little bit of water on the spot where it's going so that I can move the decal around once it's on the model. And I'm also going to be using a little bit of setting solution because I really need these decals to stick down to this paint. Okay, it's really important. If there's any like air pockets or just places where it hasn't settled down good, it doesn't look great. So I've put a little of the setting solution on there, and I'm just going to slide this white 18 off the backing paper onto the roof, and then we'll position it, blot it dry, and we'll go through. We'll do the front number, we'll do the vehicle ID number, we'll do the door logos and all the other stuff, and then we'll let them dry really, really well before we come back and do the color layer of the decals. Okay, so I let this sit for some 14 hours, something like that, before I touched it again. And the decals were really settled in there very nicely. I was very happy with it. So now I can go ahead and put on the color layers. And just starting on the front number shield, I've put a little water over the top of it. Don't use too much. We don't want to soften it. And then we'll go ahead and dip our colored, it's just a solid navy blue number 18. And we'll go ahead and put that in the water, let it soak, little setting solution over the top of it, and then we'll slide this in place and we'll center it on that white decal, and it's going to look aces, I'm telling you. We'll also use a little softening solution on the decals as well. Make sure that everything conforms to the body shape or any textures or what have you. So we're going to do all that. And then listen, here's something really important that you need to pay attention to. Our truck had numbered compartments. So starting from the front left compartment, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on the right, it started in the back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 going to the front. So it kind of looped around the back of the truck. And that means compartment 5 and 6 are those two separate compartments. So it's really, really vital that you pay attention to the orientation of that piece when you put the decals on. You got to make sure that the compartments are facing the correct, facing in the correct way, the right direction, or however you want to say that. Otherwise, your numbers are going to be on the wrong side of the compartment, or worse, the opposite side of the truck. So you need to really pay attention to that. And yes, I do. I pay very close attention to where I put my decals so that I don't screw it up. But anyhow, like I said, we'll get all the decals on, let them dry, and then we can head back to the paint booth. Okay, so we're back at the paint booth. The decals have thoroughly dried for like 40 hours, something like that. And now I can clear coat the cab. And again, I'm going to put down some sealing layers, just a tack coat and some mid coat layers, then wet coats. And again, just like the paint, I want to put this down as heavy as I can without causing a run or a sag. All right. But first, we're going to build up to that, seal everything up, then we'll go ahead and put those heavier coats on later. But you can see how nice the decals look. I'm so happy with the way everything came out. It looks fantastic. Now I just need to not blow the clear coat job here, and life will be good. Okay, so I got to tell you, the cab looks amazing. And I'm at that stage where I get really excited. Here's how this works for me. I start out model builds and I have a lot of fun, but there's a certain point in every build where I get really excited about what's happening, and I'm at that point right now. I'm very excited because that cab looks amazing. And I said this in the Engine 14 video. The paint job is too nice to be realistic. Okay, it just is. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I'm simply stating a fact. A late 70s, early 80s paint job on an old American LaFrance ladder chief, it wasn't this nice. It wasn't this shiny. It wasn't this deep and glossy and rich. Okay, so it really is not true to the vehicle back then, but I don't care. This is what I want. This is how I want the rig to look. I want it to be beautiful and shiny and new. Yes, I'll probably do a little bit of very, very light distressing, chipping, things like that. Nothing major. But overall, I want the paint job to be stunning. And that's what I'm getting. And I don't care if it's realistic or not. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and finish up all the little pieces with this clear coat, and then I think we're going to wrap this video up and pick it up in the next video. All right, there you have it. This episode of the ladder truck model build. So far, despite little hiccups along the way and me being, well, stupid, I think it's going really great. I'm very, very pleased with it. I think it's going to come out beautiful. I'm excited to finish, but we still have a lot of work to do. So make sure you stay tuned for the rest of the episodes. All right, that's going to do it for today. If you like this video, please give it a giant thumbs up, click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss one of my videos. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Okay, that's going to do it. I hope you have an amazing day. Until next time, this is Paul from Fat Guy Productions saying, be good.